What's going on, Juan? It's the one-on-one podcast meets the Big Dumb. Dude, it's nice to finally connect with you, dude.
Hello, motherfucker.
What's up, dude?
Dude, you got sound effects. Oh my god. Oh, dude, I love that, dude. I've been listening to a lot more podcasts with sound effects and jingles and stuff, and man, I want to incorporate it so bad, but it's a time thing, dude. You got to pull all the clips, you got to edit them down, you got to, I'm the Big Dumb. I barely can fucking work StreamYard, and it's pretty simple to use. So I applaud you for the effective use of sound effects.
It's all how bad you want it, dude. I mean, you can figure it out. It's not all that bad, right?
I have this one.
You talk like a fag, and your shit's all retarded.
That's the one I got. So
Yo, I got a fire Alex Jones one that I haven't uploaded yet, but yeah, it's pretty up there. I got some fire ones here and there.
Oh, dude. Well, if you feel the need at any point in the show, just drop it in. I love that shit. So
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
That's my favorite one.
Dude, do you remember watching that episode of Joe Rogan with Alex Jones? It was like,
dude,
proportions. I think it was like the most downloaded podcast ever.
It is Alex Jones, man. You know, and this is the whole thing with, when does conspiracy, when it's true, when does it start becoming like fact? You know what I mean? This guy has been, okay, you know, he doesn't seem like a piece of shit to me. He doesn't seem like he's like a bad guy. I think he's just quick. He's got a trigger finger sort of way with his mouth. He's just diarrhea like a Trump. But I don't feel like he's just right about a lot of things, man. And I think, look at everything that's happening right now, bro. All the things that have come true, the latest on Fauci and the gain of function research and all this stuff. And it's like, we were talking about this since March of 2020. And now it's true. And so where do we go from here, dude?
Yeah, I mean, with Alex Jones in particular, I mean, he's been on about so much stuff. And, you know, I will say, being an entertainer from, like, I was an actor in college, so I understand first that he's an entertainer. Like, that's how he gets audience and stuff. But I feel, like you said, he's a good guy. Like, he has good intentions. And I think a lot of the blow up kind of crazy, like you said, the trigger finger with his mouth kind of thing, I think a big part of that is being an entertainer. But it could also be the fact that if you've been doing what he's been doing so long and the amount of knowledge you've accumulated, I would be blowing up all the time too. Mm-hmm. And actually, like, if you listen to more of his recent stuff, like even today I was listening and he was like, I need to take a break from the show, because he's tried to stop blowing up like that on the streams on the show.
Said that last week.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Because he's like, it just gets clipped and it goes viral and people think I'm crazy. And he's like, and it's not good for my health. So I'm trying to like take a break. But yeah, dude, I mean, and as far as like stuff becoming conspiracy, I mean, I look at shows like No Agenda podcast and Alex Jones, and they've been calling these things, you know, months before it even hits the mainstream. I mean, those two shows in particular, No Agenda and Alex Jones, they were talking about this virus, not specifically COVID, but the potential of a virus in like 2018, 2019. They're like, something's not right. Like they're kind of seeing the signs. And I think it woke, once it hit, it woke a lot of people up to start looking for those signs. So there were things happening in March, April, and information coming out that people like you and I, who are in tune to this kind of stuff, we're like, oh, this is what's happening. You know, we can kind of see with a playbook, like we said, oh, this is all about vaccines, vaccine passports, digital ID. At the very least, we were like, this is what that's going to lead to, you know, and people were like, no, that's crazy. It's 15 days. Slow spread. And we're like, okay, all right. You know, because even at the beginning, even I was like, I knew it was kind of fuckery, but even then I was on the side of like, oh, we're all going to die, you know, because like you look at those videos from China, remember, people just dropping dead. I feel like that was to get people on our, in our circles to be like, oh shit, like, to get us on board. And then, because no one was fucking looking at that shit and then once it all hit, it just blew the fuck up. But yeah, dude, it's an amazing time to be alive. But it's also, a little scary, but like, you can't live in fear. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man.
That's what they want, dude. They want to keep us in fear, and it's all about control. And I think this is just some Truman Show, right? We have this stacked spaghetti sauce guy in the White House. It's all just a really bad soap opera if you really look at it, dude. And yeah, I've been into this whole conspiracy thing ever since I could. For me, it started with the dinosaurs, man. When I was like in school.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I used to be fascinated with the dinosaurs, and then the very first conspiracy theory, if you will, that I got into was the Bermuda Triangle, right? Like that's the OG of like what is going on with this.
That's one of those, thinking back on it, it's one of those like mainstream conspiracy things. Like, my mom would be like, "Oh, I'm like, what's the Bermuda Triangle?" And she's like, "Oh, it's the if planes and shit disappear there." It's like, that's it. Okay, cool. And I never thought about it. So like, what about the Bermuda Triangle? Like, did you go deep in it as a kid? Like, were you like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and like the whole alien movement. And did you know that there's the Bermuda Triangle is part of what they call the 12 vortex vertices, and it's actually 12 separate triangles all around along the equator and in the North and South Pole. And it's part of this bigger network of places where either the magnetic field of the world is weakened and like there's higher levels of radiation and whatnot. And I think it's just places of high strangeness. Like there's one over by it's called the Dragon's Triangle, where it's literally where the Japanese Atlantis is. But then there's a bunch of planes and boats that have sunk in there, so the Japanese government doesn't let you go down there to like look around. But there's literally a sunken city out there, dude. It's called the Dragon's Triangle. That's fucking sick.
So with the Bermuda Triangle, I'm gonna write that down. Dragon's Triangle. That sounds like the trifecta of like drugs you do all at once. But so from what I've heard, like on the Bermuda Triangle, it's like there are opposite triangles like directly through the Earth. So if like you took the Bermuda Triangle and just dug a hole straight through the other side of the Earth, there's another Bermuda Triangle on that side. Is that kind of, so you're saying there's like 12 of those, so there's like all these lines going
so
through?
You have the equator, and then you have 12 right along the equator, like literally just like flip-flop, like asymmetrical, right, above, or symmetrical above each other. And then there's one in the North Pole and the one in the South Pole. And we know of people who have gone missing in the North Pole. We know about Admiral Byrd in the South Pole and Antarctica, right, where there was the hollow earth and all this shit. And I just think it's got to do with these high strangest areas, like the Skinwalker Ranch, if you will, right? Like these places where reality is the veil is thin, and I think that has to do with that, where there's certain places it's got to do with ley lines. Why did the Egyptians build where they built? Why did all these ancient civilizations build where they built, where they built their sacred temples and all this stuff? And not only that, but you got to remember that the government would tear down sacred buildings and build government buildings where it's all connected. These guys know. It's like Nikola Tesla. He knew that the world is like this energetic field.
It was like living, almost like the world was a being in itself.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, dude. Tesla was one of my first, like, I was into aliens and stuff, and when I was a kid, but Tesla, when I was in college, I did a whole research thing on this guy, and I went fucking deep, and I was like, oh my God, we, this is something that we don't use today. I mean, this is the foundation of our modern electrical system, like his AC, current. But the other stuff he was working on, it just got slashed and shunned. And once they figured out that he wasn't planning to run this fucking shit through a meter, to charge you for it, they shut it down. And I'm like, well, same thing like the cure for cancer. Like, how many of these lost hidden technologies, even going back to ancient times, are we not privy to? Do you know what I mean?
Well, if one of the biggest reptilians, JP Morgan, was one of the ones that was funding Nikola Tesla. And it's like how you said, and this relates to what's going on right now, dude, because if they can't monetize it, right? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's happening right now. They can't. It's a fucking, number one, it's a cult. Number two, it's a new business model that they have. And I just recently learned, I'm here in Florida, okay? and this is the COVID capital of the universe, right?
Texas right here, dude. The free state of Florida.
Yeah. So
Florida could break off and like slide over to Texas, you know, and like have like be the dick of Texas. And I think it'd be like a super nation right there.
right, that'd be fucking awesome. So I recently just learned that because the lines here for the COVID test are fucking crazy long, dude. They're super long. It's $75 a pop per COVID test. $75 per COVID test. And there are hundreds of people, thousands of people getting COVID. Dude, they're making so much money off of this. So when Nikola Tesla said, hey, the world, the earth, right? This is what lightning is, the stratosphere, all this shit. There's energy there that we can harness. So why don't we do that? Because then we can have radio waves transmitted from one place to another without, you know what I mean? He was way ahead of his time, but again, he wanted to what? That's why they said they killed Gaddafi, because he was drilling for water supposedly. And again, it's a hot commodity, right? Supposedly the fresh water's running out, et cetera, et cetera. So just like Nikola Tesla, he died penniless in some hotel room, right? He out of all the hundreds and thousands of patents that he had, he couldn't ever come to fruition and make something of it. Maybe, I think he was on the spectrum. If you follow his life, he shows signs of somebody who was on the spectrum. Perhaps he had autism or something. But I think that the powers that be also understood that he wanted to do something that was going to go against industrializing a certain thing, right? A certain industry. And yeah, he contributed a lot to it. He worked for Thomas Edison, you know, at one time.
Yeah, and they were competitors too.
Yeah.
You know, Edison they worked together. He actually worked for like you said, worked for Thomas Edison and invented a ton of stuff. Edison ended up stealing the patents and like not giving him his cut, and then you know, tried to discredit Tesla after he got new investors like the Westinghouse Group and everything. Once he started working for them, Edison was like, oh no, and he deliberately manipulated Tesla's technology to like scare people and kill elephants and kill dogs. Like he rounded up all the stray dogs.
Oh yeah, dude. And I think they tried to use it to electrocute a prisoner too, right? And one time, and he ended up doing it.
Chair. Yeah, the electric chair came from Thomas Edison using Tesla's manipulated technology, dude. So it's all, like you said, it's all fear-based, you know. And you talk about earlier, you mentioned like the veil is thinner, right? And I feel like there's certain individuals throughout time where the veil is much thinner, because even Tesla in his diaries, he would talk about how these aren't my inventions. I'm just my brain is a receiver for a transmission that I'm getting from.
He thought he was talking to aliens, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and you mentioned, you know, the thing about the veil. It's something with like kids too, like young kids and like babies. I feel like the veil for them, like that innocence they have, is also a lot thinner. That veil between the two realms, I guess. Because I've heard countless stories of, and even my mom says when I was a baby, I was talking to my dead great grandfather who I never met. You know, I'd just be on the couch, just like, yeah. And then I'd be like talking, and she'd be like, who are you talking to? And I'd say like, oh, Poppy. And she's like, you don't know who Poppy is. You know what I mean? So I think with young children and things like that, there's another story I heard of this family or whatever heard of it had like a infant and like a 2-year-old, and they heard the 2-year-old on the baby monitor talking to the infant in the crib, right? And the 2-year-old's just talking to the baby, and the baby's going, ah. And the 2-year-old's like, do you remember what God looks like? Because I'm forgetting, you know, like, holy shit. Like, you know, because if you believe in that kind of stuff, like you come from this other side into this world, your spirit might remember what God looks like, or whatever it is, the creator, whoever. I don't, you know, so I think the veil aspect of this reality is super fascinating.
So a couple things. The first one being, congrats on being engaged, right?
Now, thanks, brother. Appreciate that, man.
Now you'll know what true pain and suffering is. I'm kidding.
I'm looking forward to it, man. And I tell people, they say congratulations. I'm like, I'm still terrified. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy and I'm excited, but man, it's like, it's a scary thing no matter what, you know? So thank you. I appreciate that.
So the first thing's that. And the second thing is I have a 3.5-year-old and I have another one on the way in May. I have
congrats,
two boys. Thank you. And
2 boys.
Yeah,
oh,
2
dude,
boys.
you're like a king, man.
So the thing about the thing about kids, right? And I feel very passionate about this subject. And I think any pedophiles or anything like that, people who hurt children in any way, shape, or form deserve, they are the scum of the earth and they deserve the worst. And the whole aspect of kids and what you're saying, when I've heard my son, when he was smaller, talking right in his room, et cetera, and he would just look around. It's like, what is he looking at? And he also believes that he's Optimus Prime, and I'll get to that here in a second. So the first thing being, I read this book. It's called The Astral Plane, The Inhabitants, and Its Scenery. And one of the main things on that book was the auras of people, and the auras of children in particular. They're more pure, they're more susceptible because they haven't been indoctrinated. They get to a certain age before they start going to school to where they are indoctrinated by the system for whatever reason. And obviously we know how that goes. They put all these ideas and thoughts in their heads. But before they get to that point, they have this sort of innocence, this pureness. And we know that we're in conspiracies, et cetera, et cetera. And the reptilians or the archons or the powers that be, the dark brothers, whatever you want to call them, they understand this. And this is where you get the whole pedophilia aspect of the whole QAnon movement, whatever you want to refer to it as, because they understand that they're more pure than, let's say, me or you, that we've already been, I've been alive 27 years. I can already decipher good from bad, and kids can't, right? Kids are so innocent. And they feed off of that. There's something about that. And in that book, it talks about how pure kids are and how they're able to, until a certain point, kind of sort of peak between that veil. And it brings me to my next point. He thinks he's Optimus Prime. And it goes back to, it makes me think of how people live the realities that are presented to them. So when he's watching these cartoons or he's playing with his toys, he's living in the reality that he's created for himself, even at the age that he's at. And I relate that to what's happening now. People are living in this fear-based reality being painted by the media. I say defund the media, don't defund the police, because the media is the one portraying these ideas out in this propaganda to people, and they're living this. We're all living in alternate realities. There's people who I understand. I see people still driving around with masks on in their cars by themselves.
Yeah, walking down the street outside.
I went to I ride a mountain bike. I went the other day to a trail. There was a dude with a mask on the trail outside. I said, "What are you doing, bro? What are you doing? Are you that fearful?" But again, it goes back to something that I've heard it being referred to as memetic occultism, where they use propaganda to speak to people on a deeper level, and it speaks to their soul. And it goes back to what fucking Plato talked about, how the arts would speak to people and inspire people at a deeper level. And this is, again, these are the realities that people form for themselves, dude. And it's like this crazy, it's wild to me, dude. It's just crazy.
Talking about, Plato and the arts and things. So I was in school, and I went to college for theater as an actor and a director, right? And so I learned a lot about this kind of like the emotion of art and things like that. And the Greeks.
Bro, 1 second. Do you have a fucking poster of Bill Cosby on your wall?
Yeah, dude. What's wrong? What are you talking about? He's just encouraging young children to read. Okay. When you go to the library in school and they have all the read posters, this is a vintage collector's item. Okay. And I like to flaunt it because it speaks to who Bill Cosby is at the heart, right? And so you can't see this from here, but I will tell you, the book he is reading to these young children,
Plato's The Republic.
It's a very diverse group of children, right? You've got a little white girl, you got a little Asian girl here, some dumb fat white boy, and then a black girl, of course, right? And they're all on Bill Cosby, like they're cuddling him as he's laying down reading this book to them. The book he's reading is titled Kidnapped.
Seriously?
I'm 100%.
Dude.
It's called Kidnapped. It's like a 1800s, novel or whatever. So, thank you for pointing that out, because it speaks to the truth of who Bill Cosby is at the heart and what he means to all of us. So
sure it does.
I appreciate that.
It's like collecting Nazi memorabilia. Like, yeah, it speaks to me on a deeper level,
Would you like to see my grandfather's medal? like those Argentinian colonies of white people with blonde hair, and they're like they speak Spanish.
And the German art and shit. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off. I just caught my. I was like, is that
No,
fucking
you're
Bill
good,
Cosby, dude?
I've also got this African mask here is actually from a haunted African relic like art studio. Not I don't you know, like when they get a bunch of things together, you know, for like
Artifacts and shit.
Yeah, and this was stored with a bunch of artifacts in a basement for a really long time, and his eyes kind of follow you sometimes.
I don't think when you're done making the point that you're making, I'm gonna make another point.
Okay, let's do it. So I was talking about, you know, theater, the original art form of the Greeks and things, and their plays were shit. You know what I mean? They're just bad, boring plays. But to your point about, you know, this kind of you called it memetic occultism. This art was all about a catharsis of the masses, right? These audiences were huge, and they'd all get together, and they would it was a catharsis of emotion. So they would all together cry or all together laugh. Like you're watching this thing happen, this story be told, and it's meant to almost hypnotize the masses in a way, if it's done well, right? You know, because I appreciate the art of theater and acting and things like that, you know, so I understand what the point is, but it is about a catharsis of emotion, like letting things out. Like if you're, you know, if times were bad, they would put on a show so everybody could weep together and feel better about everything after the fact. So and we see that today with, you know, they call this the political theater, media theater. They're just putting on a show. It's to elicit a response, an emotional response. And that goes to the heart of, you know, what I was taught in school. And at the time I didn't realize it. You know, I was like, I just want to be on stage and make people laugh and cry and, you know, be full of myself. And so, and that's kind of what I'm doing here, right? In a sense, but I'm searching for a deeper truth. But at the same time, yes, to your point, it's all about, it goes back to that, you know, whole mass psychosis kind of thing of we're all in this together. We're all feeling the same thing, and people can't grasp the fact that not everyone sees things the same way. Everyone thinks they're all watching the same thing, but there's two movies going on right now. So
yeah,
but go ahead about what you're gonna say about this. Is Kambuki over here, by the way. Kambuki.
So yeah, and it's got to do with what people were flipping out about on the latest Joe Rogan episode with Dr. Malone, where he talks about the mass formation psychosis and how you get you have these factors that, as long as they're aligned in the correct way, something happens, right? Like this mass hysteria type of thing. But I 100% agree with you. There are things, it's neurolinguistic programming where people, it's to elicit a reaction from people, right? We have, and I think that has to do with a bunch of different things where throughout all of time, and I know that fear is passed down genetically, right? And I always talk about the chicken with the shapes flashed above its head. When you flash the shape of a circle or a triangle or a square, it does nothing. But as soon as you flash the shape of an eagle above the head of a chicken, through its genetics, it understands like, fuck, eagle is bad or hawk is bad, whatever, fucking run. And the same thing happens with people. All throughout time, we've been governed by one power, right? We've always had these monarchs and these kings, queens, whatever it is. And I think the human condition is just so used to that. It's used to having, and it's I don't want to say it's needed. I don't believe in abusing power, but I think it's needed in the way to be able to govern a people, right? You need to be able to have some sort of structure. This is why Moses was presented the 10 Commandments, because he had, these people it was a mass exodus and he had tons of people, so they needed something to be able to govern the people. And what do the 10 Commandments say at the very core of them? Don't be a piece of shit. Don't murder your neighbor, love thy father and mother, don't fuck your neighbor's wife, etc., etc. And I think that has to do with, again, starting some sort of tribe or people, civilization, if you will. And I think that's needed, but it gets into the darker aspects of things when people start to abuse the power that's given to them, which we see today. There are things that the government does which are shady as shit. We have Project Paperclip, where they brought all these Nazis. We were talking about the Nazis earlier, where they bring all these Nazis over and they literally put us in space. Oppenheimer, again, another person, another questionable figure in history, where he created the atomic bomb, one of the most destructive things in in the history of mankind. And I always bring back, and I talk about Pythagoras a lot because it's one of the most fascinating characters. If he existed or not, I don't know. One of the most fascinating characters of history, where he talked about, he said, if man is able to crush at least one grain of dirt or sand, he will ultimately destroy himself. And we're way past that. We're way past that by a long shot. And it brings me to the simulation argument. One of the three things of that is civilizations eventually destroy themselves before they can reach technological maturity. What does that mean? How, again, we're talking about symbols, about acting. What are all the Terminator movies? What are all the Matrix movies about? What are all Blade Runner? What are all these movies about? The fucking technology taking over and killing us and eventually taking over, right? It's these symbols that they put out there. That poster that you have up, if you look at it, oh, it's just Bill Cosby reading to some kids. In hindsight's 2020. Oh, he's a fucking pedophile. He's a piece of shit.
Right. I've had this for 5-6 years before any of that stuff came out. So it was one of those things like, I got it because it was like a high school was getting rid of it. I had it up in my college dorm room. I was like, this is hilarious because it's Bill Cosby, yada, yada, yada. But I see your point. In hindsight, it's like, oh my God, this man is a horrible human being.
Yeah, people looking at that at the time weren't thinking like, hey, why is he reading this kidnap book to them? Or why is he, you know what I mean? Because people aren't thinking that way. But it brings me to the point that they put these things out there in order for us to almost, I don't know, like see it. But they have to, it's like this magician thing where they need to put it out in, hidden in plain sight. You know what I mean? Like they put out these things, these esoteric symbols, and these, and if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have enough knowledge in that area to understand and decipher these symbols, you're going to be lost, right? And you're just going to be another one of the sheep. And whenever I watch a movie, dude, I just finished watching for the first time Cloud Atlas. And it's by the Wachowskis, which there were the Wachowski sisters at first, and now they were the Wachowski brothers, and now they were the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah, right.
Which is weird, right? So I watched that movie, and it's got Tom Hanks in it, of course, which another piece of shit, but great actor nonetheless. But when I was watching that movie, whenever I watch a movie now, dude, I did a review on the latest Matrix, and whenever I watch a movie, I'm able to break down the symbolism within that movie. So,
it's ruined movies for me.
Yes, it really has. And like when I'll be watching something with my wife, and I'll be like, oh, that's what that means. But again, people who aren't open to this, they don't. We talked about the veil being thinner, right? And it relates to, again, genetics for some people with the haplogene X group, which is a group of people that supposedly are more susceptible to the paranormal and the mysticism, spirituality, and this is how we get the projections of the skinwalker, the Wendigo, maybe perhaps Bigfoot, and how Sigmund Freud talked about, or I think it was Carl Jung, that he talked about how UFOs were projections of people's psyches. And I think that this comes from people who have this certain type of gene in them. And
what's it called? Haploid gene X?
Haplogene X. And it goes fucking way back, bro, to ancient civilizations. And I believe that the ancient civilizations were able to tap into something more paranormal and supernatural. And this is how you get these great advanced civilizations and how they were able to piece the fuck out from one day to the next. What happened to the Mayans? Oh, we don't know. They just disappeared. What happened to the Egyptians? Oh, well, the Hyksos took them over. Well, who the fuck were they? Oh, they were just some nomadic group. And they just happen to take over one of the greatest civilizations of all time. And I think that's what happens. They're able to reach this level spiritually, and they're able to align themselves at a vibrational frequency. And this is what all these pyramids around the entire world and globe are for. I think that there were maybe some sort of energetic, they have to do with energy and like these ancient power plants, if you will, because if we go back to Nikola Tesla, the Wardenclyffe Tower was designed after one of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and with the ducts of water and all this stuff underneath it. And underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, you have I forgot the name of it. It's escaping me now, but there's water. There's a catacomb under there
from the Nile, right?
I don't know if it's from the Nile, but again, it's all limestone. So it's like here, like Florida, we have a bunch of limestone, and the water just there's aquifers underneath there, and they say that it has to do with that. This water underneath there with the ducks. Because what did they teach us in school, bro? That it was a tomb for the pharaohs. They've never found a fucking body in any one of them.
No.
So
Never.
again, they hide these things because the mainstream archaeology or mainstream Egyptology, they don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to be like, hey, you know what? We're fucking wrong. The aliens built it.
It could be like a Stargate situation where they initially found this thing and then they found something unexplainable or some high technology.
It's Stargate, another show that's showing you what could be, because it's symbols. This is what the Baghdad War was, or the Iraq War. It was for what? Saddam Hussein thought he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, and he was collecting different artifacts to activate Stargates around the world. We have Stargates in India, bro. All these Vimanas and all this shit, there's Stargates up there, bro. It's fucking fascinating.
Well, and Hitler did the same thing, with the occult and the Thule Society, and that's where really like you can follow the parallel like lines between the Nazi occult interest and then their tyrannical rise, to power. It's almost like they're on the same path. Like, okay, he discovers the Thule Society. Okay, then he starts taking over, and then he, discovers there's an ancient race or aliens or something that can give him technology. Then he starts the war, and it's like parallel their movements of how the occult and the tyranny kind of move together. And I watched Hellboy the other day, great movie, and in Hellboy they're saying Hitler died in 1958, after the occult wars, and he's like,
1958.
I thought it was 45, and he's like,
yeah,
that's what they say. And it's that's, but I'm just saying, like, there's so much more to this stuff, and the people in power, the higher, they believe in this shit, whether you or I or people listening, whether we believe in this kind of crazy occult magic or advanced technology.
I believe it, bro.
Oh, I do too, but I'm saying like the people at the top believe in it 100%.
Yeah. It's got to do with again these ancient mystery schools that were going on in ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, Mesoamerica, where they would worship these entities. And it to bring up the point that I was going to bring when you were talking about the artifacts, and there's ancient beliefs that the jinn, right? You know what the jinn are?
They're like the skinwalkers of the Middle East.
Yeah, they're pretty much demons and fairies mixed together, right? And they say that these things are able to attach themselves to inanimate objects. And I'm doing research right now on H.P. Lovecraft. I'm doing a show on H.P. Lovecraft right now.
Nice.
And one of the things that comes up with when he was a boy, number one, his mother would dress him up as a girl, because in Celtic culture they believe that boys were more susceptible to be abducted by fairies than girls. So women would dress up their boys and literally give them girl names. And H.P. Lovecraft was one of the ones that his mother dressed him up like a girl and even gave him a girl name. And when he was a young boy, he collected artifacts and these little trinkets and stuff like that. And they say that perhaps almost like the most famous jinn that we can think of is the genie in the bottle, right? Where the genie is attached to the bottle that's in it. When you rub it, it comes out. He grants you wishes, just like Goetia, and how demons grant people certain powers by doing certain rituals and Solomonic magic and so on and so forth. And one of the things that they said was that one of the jinn that took over him was Cthulhu, right? Because if you think about the mythos that he came up with and these ideas, bro, he was able to describe places he had never been to without actually going to them. He was having like some sort of remote viewing, and we know that he had the nightmares, and they say that maybe one of the trinkets that he had when he was a boy had some sort of entity in it that would come to him when he was in his dreams. It's got to do with Houdini as well, that he was having the same nightmares. And just this idea that the whole Cthulhu mythos and all these monsters that he came up with, this universe that he came up with, was channeled through this entity that like came to him in his dreams, right? And we can, who else had dreams? Solomon had dreams, right? He wanted to be the most wise man in the world. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream too, right? We have all these people throughout history that had dreams, and it's like, what the fuck's going on? And it how you saying that these elites, they participate in these occult circles and secret societies, and the Knights Templar with John the Baptist's head and Baphomet supposedly, where they were talking to this entity that was prophesizing. There's an ancient Egyptian belief that if you have the head of a prophet, it prophesizes to you through alchemy and through all these other means. And it's crazy, bro. But I had Steve from the Slow News Day the other day on the show, and it was very heavy politics and just political science, straight to the facts, right? Julian Assange. We talked about all this shit, and then on one of the parts of the show, Steve it was nothing like how we're talking about now. He pretty much says it. These people think that they're talking to otherworldly entities that they say that give them powers. And I was like, bruh, this is what we talk about, because it always goes back down to the spirituality aspect of it.
I think, and I think everything leads back to that in some point or the other. You start with JFK, you end with Cthulhu, right? Like there's always some, it eventually, because in our line of questioning, we say, why would they do this? If not for power, if not for, like, these people have power, they have money. What else do they want? And I think it's a deeper thing. I've had people on my show talk about how these people, descendants of certain bloodlines or whatever, they know that they are not from the creator, so like you and I, and I don't know if I believe all this or not, I'm just speaking, but we are created from the creator, therefore we are able to create. Like we can make art, we can make music, we can make all these things, ideas, and these people at the top, these lizards, as you would say, and I want to get into that a little bit, they have no ability to create, so they have to manipulate us, the created ones, in order to manifest their creations. Do you know what I mean? Like they're missing something in their DNA or their heritage or whatever.
The divine spark.
Exactly. Yes. They come from a different line. You know what I mean? Almost like the Cain and Abel kind of line. Like there's a line of Cain and the line of Abel, and Cain, you can't, right? Cain killed Abel, right? Is that right?
I believe so. Either that or vice versa. I can't.
But whichever one is the murderer, like that line.
One chose the light side, the other chose the dark side, pretty much.
Exactly.
The Sith and the Jedi, it's all the same story over and over again. It's like that book, the Hero with 1,000 Faces, where it's all these reiterations of the same figure. And with religion, right? I grew up in a Pentecostal household where it was just shoved down my throat, right? The whole Christian aspect of everything. And I think the other day I got into a conversation with somebody because they said that the universe, this big dumb thing that can't think for itself, and there's no way that we were just created from the Big Bang and God was behind everything. I think that there is some sort of higher power. I just don't feel that it should be labeled as such. Either, take your pick, Jesus Christ, Krishna, Quetzalcoatl, right? Kukulkan, whatever one you want to pick, Buddha, right? All throughout Muhammad, all throughout history, whichever one. I think that was the same person or a group of people who were able to show people Reiki healing and just alternative medicine, if you will. But remember, the Christianization of society and humanity, because it's in our money, right? One of the biggest countries in the entire world. In God we trust. So again, another business. It's a brokered experience. So you can only achieve divinity through us, and anything else is heresy. So that's what happened to all the other people who talked about the alternatives that there are. One of my favorite ones being the Gnostics, that they talked about that we are our own gods. We are able to create our own realities, and we're able to achieve divinity through gnosis. Guess what happened to them? History, his story. So to the victor, the spoils. So whoever won is the one that wrote the fucking books. All the stuff that we know about the Gnostics were from people who hated them. People who despised them, and they were like, oh yeah, they were practicing witchcraft, et cetera, et cetera. But it's coming from a guy who hated them, Irenaeus and some other church father. But again, back to the whole thing of we are our own gods, and I'm not saying, you know, I reserve the right to change my mind at any given point, but I
Yeah.
100% do believe that there is some sort of architect, if you will.
Right.
And he is the one that is pulling the strings, and a part of
Or
now,
not, or taking his hands off. You know, I've heard things where like
it's like the
there's
Book of
been-
Enoch, bro.
yeah, there's been times when, you know, the creator, God, whoever said, hey, y'all chose to do this. Good luck. Have fun. You know, I'll come clean things up later when y'all mess it up.
Yeah, the
And-
Book of Enoch is like that. The humans, right? The whole reason for the Great Flood was because the experiment of El, this God figure, right, had gone wrong. And this is when you get the Nephilim, the giants, the Elohim that were coming down and fucking the humans, right? They were like, hey, they're fucking hot. Let's have sex with them. This is where you get the, and when they were done fucking the humans, they started fucking the animals. This is how you get the minotaurs, fairies, the harpies, the centaurs, all this stuff. And then you have the demigods, right? Like Hercules and all these other mythological people in, you know, Greek mythology, what's the other one? Roman mythology. All these gods, I believe that came from where the Elohim or the Nephilim, they were having intercourse with all the humans, and they were just having a fucking big orgy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and something you said a minute ago too about like, you know, that these people were considered heretics because they said like, well, I am a creator, I am God or whatever. There was actually a famous Christian. I don't know if he was a preacher or not. And I'm the big dumb dude. I don't remember shit about anything. But he was this famous Christian philosopher, and he said, if God is in everything, therefore I am God. Like he said, like, I am God. And so he was burned at the stake for that. But I think that's more true than anything. Like if God is everything and everything is God, then I am God. I'm not saying that I shouldn't be humbled by the fact that there's something more powerful than me, but I think what he meant was that the spirit and the power of the divine, the creator, the architect, God, is in all of us who accept that power. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you can choose evil, you can choose wrong and evil, but if you choose to take the enlightened path or the good path, for better words, like it's silly to say that God's not with you in some aspect of that, right? Like you know, even making a baby, dude, that's something powerful. Like I haven't made a baby yet, but I'm planning on it, and I'm like, man, I can already feel like in my bones and stuff, like, man, I don't know, man. It's one of those things, like it's a spiritual experience if you look at it that way, you know?
Yeah, well, I want to just say, I mean, if you're planning on having kids, it's one of the best experiences that you'll ever have. And when you have your first child, you'll know what I mean. It completely changes your entire fucking life. And
Looking forward to it, dude.
I don't think that everybody should have kids. I think that it takes a certain person to have kids, because how I always said, it is a emotional thing more than anything, right? It's a more psychological thing more than anything. And this is why some people snap when they have kids. But yeah, it's a great thing. And back to your point of, you know, this whole thing that we are gods and stuff, I think to a certain extent, this is why I believe in the law of attraction, because what we talked about earlier, creating our own realities and the realities that we live in, I think that if you take the example of when before somebody knows that they have terminal cancer versus when they actually know that they do, why is it that they always go down quicker than before they knew that they had it? Because again, it's mind over matter. It's all mental.
Right.
And I think this is another thing that the ancients understood, that that we are able to manifest things into existence. Now, it takes a certain aspect to be able to do it. It's not just, I can think of something really hard and it'll come. That's meditation. That's prayer. That's intention. Now, you still have to put the legwork in order to make things happen. So if you wanted to go, I don't know, if you wanted to eventually make a living off of podcasting, it could eventually happen as long as you align everything how it should be, and therefore you've manifested it, right? Because you put that intention out there, but you also work towards it. So
right. It's not like a vision board's going to make me $1 million. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
but I think
it's on a board, but it gets your mind in the right place, right? Like that manifestation, that visualization.
It's like chaos magic, yeah.
Exactly. You're because you know I struggle with that all the time, dude. Like, man, I have all these things I want to do. I have all these goals and these intentions, but if I don't actually fucking get up in the morning and do anything about it, I can think about it all day. It's not going to happen, you know? And you see all this shit on Instagram, like you can manifest $1 million in your fucking bank
You
account.
could.
Like,
I mean, you eventually could, but
yeah, but you got to fucking do something.
You
But you got to
gotta-
start a business. You got to sell
Yeah.
your ass, whatever it takes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I mean-
So, and you know, back on the subject of magic and what I said earlier, I believe in it because I think back then, I think it was like how we see in the movies like Harry Potter and all these, what's the Leverio fucking whatever the fuck he says with the wand, whatever. I don't fucking remember what he says, but
I don't know Harry Potter. Yeah, but I got you.
if you look, if you look back at like Welsh mythology and how
Yeah.
epic and crazy that shit was, I think that the original alphabet, dude, if language, right? Let's talk about language. The original alphabet that we had was only, I think it was 19 letters, and they added, right? Our modern day alphabet has what, 27 letters, some shit. They added symbols and letters that never fucking existed. So the reasoning behind that, I think, is because they've demystified this, what we're talking about, the humanism movement. So the I am my own God, I am my own creator. They've taken that away, right? This movement of that we are our own divine creatures, and they've put like a damper on that. So again, it goes back to the haplogene X, where people back then were able to literally manifest. Like if you look at the Wendigo is a little bit different because you have to do like this ritual. You eat somebody and then you become the Wendigo. So it's almost like a werewolf. But like the Skinwalker, this is this projection. It was pretty much black magic, and there was a war between two different tribes. One took over the other, so the other one cursed it. And I think they were able to do that by manifesting these things because of their occult knowledge and practice of witchcraft or black magic, whatever it may be. But I think they've demystified the human as far as, you know, back then language was more powerful, right? Language was that much more powerful to where people would say certain things. And it reminds me of this. There's these Gnostic trinkets that they have certain letters in them, and it's these books that we still don't know what they were for, but I have to look up the name. I don't remember the name right off the top of my head, but they had a lot of zzz and aw and like all these different letters that they used, and they say that those were used for like magical incantations, for like divination or whatever it may be. And again, these ancients knew stuff that we don't know today. And maybe this is why you see in movies when when demons talk Latin or whatever, and it reminds me of John Dee when he was with Enochian magic, where he was channeling these angels. And I think there was a story where one of them, he had to correct its like Latin or some shit like that. And it's like, wait a minute, aren't you like some divine being that's being channeled through me, and I have to correct your grammar? So it's like, it's like those guys, I think those guys were onto something, but I think that the way that they were trying to do it were like, you know, they're pretty much quacks. They were trying to just get people to believe in what they were, you know, talking about, which I don't think that.
I think there's something to that. Cause you know, I've had people on the show before talk about like, you know, like language and things like that, like a curse word, right? A curse word isn't fuck you.
Well, it's spelling. You're casting spells. That's what it is. That's why
Exactly.
they call it spelling.
Spelling words, but curses are more like, if I say like fuck you, Juan, that's not necessarily a curse, you know, it's all about context. But if I said, Juan, you're just like your father, or something like that, or if I like said like you'll never amount to anything, you know, like that's a curse.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh fuck, shit, pussy, cunt, bag, you know, that it's the intention behind the words, you know what I mean? Because the words you are just like your father in themselves aren't that bad, but it's the intention behind
But it could be
and
everything to me. As soon as you fucking say that, I just break down and start crying, because it's like,
Exactly.
oh, well, you know, why would you say that? But yeah, 100%. It's all about setting, intention. And this is why I tell people, you know, you got to be careful with what you put out there. And I'm very selective about having certain thoughts and saying certain things.
It's hard.
And it's maybe it's my superstitious mind, but
well, dude, you're your own worst enemy, dude.
yeah,
I mean,
100%.
we are our own, dude. I say shit to myself that I would never say to anybody else, dude. And and you don't think about it because you're not talking to someone else. So you're like, but you say shit to yourself, man. And that's like, that tears you down more than anything, dude. And so but it's like I said, it's hard to monitor those things, especially it's a little easier with other people. But it's even then it's still hard, dude. Like I have a hard time sometimes like trying to be compassionate about like stupid shit, like
Dude, me
just
too,
there,
bro.
like,
I
yeah,
I
like
just cried for the first time on a podcast the other day.
what,
Yeah.
dude? Where can I find this? Where can we find
It's not
this?
out yet. I don't know if I should put it out or not.
Oh, dude. You want to talk about it? Like, what was going on? What were y'all talking about?
We're talking about the whole parenthood and fatherhood thing and just giving your kids like what you never had, right? And not that I
Yeah.
had a fucked up childhood, but it just makes me feel some type of way that people that can have kids and just not be there, you know what I mean? And just be pieces of shit because they don't know any better. They didn't ask to be in this fucking world. If you're a piece of shit, that's something completely different. You shouldn't blame them. And I think, again, all situations are different. But if you have kids, I think that you should always be there 100% for them, regardless if you're with your spouse or not, whatever it is. Because dude, it affects kids. You know what I mean? You know, my parents got divorced when I was 7. And
Yeah.
at the time I didn't see it, but now I look back and I go, man, that's kind of fucked up.
That fucked me up big time, dude. And exactly like same thing here, dude. Like my parents were never married. I was like a love child. So like from the get go, my parents were never together. So it was one of those things like, you know, you know, the issues between the parents, whether my dad didn't want to be a dad. My mom didn't want to be a mom. But it's you got to step up. You know what I mean? That's just life.
That's why
And
I
I
say not a lot of people, not everyone. I think there should be some test. If you need a test to get a gun, I think you should need a test to have kids. You know what I mean? I think it
Well,
should be
I don't necessarily agree with like the government saying whether or not you can have a kid or not, but I
fucking
know what you
China.
mean. But it's almost like a spiritual test. Like if something happens and you end up, becoming a parent, it's a test. That is the test. Like, can you step up? You know what I mean? Because like my mom, when she found out she was having me, she fucking got her shit together. You know what I mean? And my dad's still getting his shit together. So it's just one of those things that like I agree, like fuck. But then again, I wouldn't be here. And sometimes it makes people better people when they find out they're having a kid, which I'm all for, dude, if that's what it takes. But hey, dude, I wanted to ask you about like lizard people, man. Like, so that's a term we use, right? For like elites, the predator class, like, you know, crazy nut jobs or whatever. But like, do you like, what is your definition of like lizard people? Do you think there's actual like shape-shifting lizards? I had a guy on my show last week, and at the end of the episode, like we're wrapping up, like we're doing outros and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I had my own experience with a lizard person. And I was like, motherfucker, you can't bring that up right now. We're ending the show. That's a good way to get you guys back on the show. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? So, and we didn't get into it. So I want to know, like, have you had experiences with this? Is it just kind of a phrase, because we talk about this all the time in our community, like these lizard people, but what are your thoughts on these lizard people, man?
I had a run in with the lizards today. I saw lizards today. Posted a clip on Instagram. I said that the lizards are working at the DMV because if you notice these people, bro, they're the most lifeless, miserable, fucking just soul sucking people there are on the face of this earth.
Now, do they go into it as a lizard, or do they leave? Do they leave work every day? When they enter the DMV after a couple months of working there, do they just like accept the lizard brain and they're like, "Fuck it, I'm a lizard now"?
Well,
Like,
so I think there's two things going on at the DMV right now, and what I think is happening is you have the lizards are working there, and when they're done with work, they just go back into the hollow earth. But the lizards are working there, and they work their 9 to 5, whatever. That's why they don't work weekends, etc., because they want to have free time, right, to rule the world as overlords and whatnot. But I think that there are NPCs in there as well that are just there to fill the void. Because I was sitting there at the DMV, and I have to go to the DMV every 6 months because I own a trucking company and I have to register my units. But I have a lot of run-ins with the DMV, and I have my fair share of experiences there. And they thrive just how we talk about how these reptilians, they thrive off of low energy and just misfortune and death and sorrow. Whenever you go to the DMV, you see people there that they're not happy to be there, right? and they will do whatever in their power to not help you. And when they tell you that they can't help you, like, for example, my whole thing today was my license is in one county, my corporation is registered in another county, and she didn't want to see me. I'm at the county where my corporation is registered, and I'm doing something corporation related, and she didn't want to see me because my license, my place of residence, was at another county. And I was like, listen, because I've had my fair share of experiences with them there. I said, listen, lady, and mind you, she is just stoic as stoic as can be, resting bitch
almost
face,
staring through you.
Yeah, like, she could see directly through my soul. I had my tinfoil hat when I was there, so they couldn't really peer through. But the whole thing was, she's like, hey, yeah, you have to go to this other county where you're licensed from. I said, listen, lady, here's my business license. It is in this county. I need to work with this here right now today. I can't go, because now they're only doing by appointments. It's like a month out. I can't do this shit right now, right? As soon as I showed her all this stuff, I saw her lizard tongue fucking flick, and she went back to her supervisor. But the way that they act there, bro, is just like, they just don't give a fuck. And the whole reptilian aspect, I believe that there is or was a reptilian race. Now, hear me out. The reason I think that is because there are certain Gnostics, and all throughout all of history, you have the Nagas, you have the serpent people in Mesopotamia. And the reason that they worship the serpent is because the serpent, the snake, doesn't need a mate to reproduce, right? And it's got to do with the divine feminine. What do we see? We see Jesus Christ, the Immaculate Conception, right? She needed no mate to have Jesus Christ, according.
Was Mary a lizard? Is that what you're getting at? I don't.
No, I'm not getting there, but we can get into it here in a second about the shape-shifting Jesus. So when I say reptilian overlords or reptilians, I think, for me, it's like a double meaning. I do think that there was some sort of reptilian race where when the Nephilim and the Elohim and all these people were fucking people and the great flood came, I think there might have been a lizard person hanging on to the keel of the great ark, right? Noah's Ark. And when the flood receded, boom, he just ran off and started his own thing somewhere and just started this underground civilization. There are talks about highly intelligent dinosaurs, right? Reptilians that went underground when the meteor strike came, and they were able, because you have all these underground cities, Derinkuyu in Turkey, where it's miles and miles of underground city. It's like, what was that for? Oh, it's for the Byzantine era, so they wouldn't take over. The people went underground. I go, they built that in a couple of years? There's no fucking way. You know what I mean? There's no way. This was already there. And again, it's got to do with this whole thing. And then to me, there's a metaphysical aspect to the reptilian, where this is what David Icke talks about, the archons, if you will, where they are these puppeteers of reality. And so, yeah, I think that there's two aspects. I do think that there are lizard people, shapeshifters, whatever, because there is a paranormal aspect to this universe that we live in, the sci-fi world, if you will. And then I think you can use it in a metaphorical sense, where it's these darker powers that be that are behind the scenes of everything, and they try to they've controlled humanity ever since the beginning of time, and it goes back to the royal bloodlines and the 13 families or whatever, however many fucking families there are. But yeah, do I think there are reptilians? 100%. Have you ever seen one? Absolutely, at the DMV.
I think that's a fair assessment. We see these people that have no life, that have no soul almost, and then also it goes back to, like, we have a lizard brain. Our brain has a lizard portion of it, where all of our violent tendencies come from, our psychopathic tendencies, our animalistic type things, so perhaps we are the descendants of lizards and gods combined. I mean, that's something to consider as well. But yeah, and that's something with the dinosaurs too. I mean, when they talk about the era of the dinosaurs, like, there's just these big, dumb, retarded T-Rexes who can't do shit but eat things. Like, maybe the T-Rexes were like the kings of lizard world, they were the
dolphins of the dinosaur world. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And dolphins are rapists. Did you know that?
Yeah, do they rape people?
Dude,
and other
they're
dolphins?
so rapey. Yeah, they gang bang people,
seen
dude.
A dolphin dick, though. I think that's something that I would like
Google it. They gang rape people. They gang rape each other.
Dolphin
So it's funny because one time my wife came into my room and my browser was open and it said hedgehogs mating because I was doing this episode on the crop circles.
Oh
And
my God, dude, do not Google dolphin dicks.
Yeah,
That's
don't.
a lot of hentai.
Yeah,
I did
don't.
not. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
Hold on,
Exit
let me
tab.
Google that shit. Hold up. Let me DuckDuckGo it. Hold on.
Yeah, I just DuckDuckGo dolphin dicks. Go to images. Don't just dolphin dick. Just dolphin dick.
Oh, they're
Singular.
all pixelated. Oh, here we go.
Oh,
Oh, dude.
You
Oh,
see
nice.
that?
Oh, they got the little mermaid, bro.
Dude, there's a little mermaid. I see a.
Oh, this
a
dude's putting his
female.
dick in a fish. What a fucking creep.
Yeah, I see a female getting double penetrated by 2 dolphins.
Oh, jeez.
The dolphins are coming all over her.
Was not ready for this.
Yeah. Yep. So that's something. Oh my God. Okay. I'm like slightly turned on, but mostly turned off. You know
Got
what
some
I mean?
BBW here going on too. Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
Big black whale dick dolphins. So BBW, big whale dick. So yeah, I mean, I think there's something to all of that. You know what I mean? Like there's with the archons, you know, that's the spiritual aspect, but who's to say they didn't stick around? You know what I mean? Do you think that we're part of a slave race of you know, like we were seeded here to mine the gold or things like that? What do you see in regards to all that when it comes to the lizards and the archons? Are they all the same? Are they one? Is there, you know, I don't know, man. There's a lot to it.
I think if anything, we are a failed experiment of the mushrooms. I think mushrooms and fungi are the ones that were the true kings because their spores can survive in outer space, in the vacuum of space. And I think we're put on this earth to spread their spores because have you ever seen something with such dynamic as a mushroom? Like this mushroom will fucking kill you. This other mushroom will make you meet, Bigfoot Jesus for, 8 hours if you take enough of it, right? It's got like, and then the one in the middle is like, this one tastes fucking delicious. So you have this aspect, and even when you step outside, it's I don't know how many miles of mycelium you have in like a 1 by 1 inch square of dirt,
Right.
or soil. So if anything, I think that we are a failed experiment of the plants because this is their universe and their world. And I think that, if my mushroom trip showed me anything is that we're a fucking cancer to this earth, dude. I think we are just how Pythagoras said, we will eventually destroy ourselves. And everything we touch, it turns to shit. And I think this is the reasons why Elon Musk wants to leave. And I'm gonna pull up this quote by Stephen Hawking, I believe it was, the quote about. Here we go. Let me pull this up. One of my favorite quotes here. Stephen Hawking said, I think computer viruses should count as life. I think it says something about human nature that the only form of life we have created so far is purely destructive. We've created life in our own image. And that speaks very deeply because if you really think about it, how Oppenheimer, there's an interview of him, they're interviewing him about the atomic bomb, and he quotes the Bhagavad Gita where he quotes, when Shiva becomes the destroyer of worlds in his multi-armed form, Vishvarupa, and he says, I have now become the destroyer of worlds, because he knew. And when you see this interview, you see in his face,
Oh yeah, I've seen it, dude.
the darkness, because he knew what he had unleashed. He knew the destructive nature of this, and I think it goes back to that human aspect, this duality within, like in the movie Altered State, where there's parts in the movie where he becomes like this animal, right? And he starts eating I think it was a monkey or some shit, where he just goes into the zoo, breaks in, and he wakes up all bloodied up. And that's got to do with I believe it was either Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung. He talks about the subconscious. And you mentioned earlier about, you said something that reminded me of it, and I didn't bring it up. But the subconscious, Carl Jung says, when you're able to bring the subconscious to the conscious, you will understand, and you will keep calling it fate until you do, or I'm paraphrasing it. But he talks about how, and I think this is what these people and these elites, these reptilians and these occult groups, I think this is an idea that they have where, like Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, all these groups, where they believe that by becoming so evil, they become divine, and this is why they do the things that they do. And there's a thing where Carl Jung says, if you're able to harness the dark self, right, the subconscious, and bring it forth, that dark self will teach you the answers to the universe, pretty much. And what that is how it's the third man. Have you ever heard of the third man argument? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar though.
So we exist in three different forms: the way people see you, the way you actually are, and the way that you see yourself. There's three people living within. It's called the third man argument.
Makes sense.
And yeah, and I think it's got to do with that, the subconscious of the dark self, the human nature. This just because it's like destructive, right? We're so fascinated with death and destruction and all these shows that we see, like Squid Games, where people are literally in a game for their lives. The movie Saw, again, it's all these cinematic works that speak to people on that next level. You know what I mean? And it's all neuro-linguistic programming, bro.
I think a lot of us too are in a way addicted to our own suffering. You know, like, you know how I said we're our own worst enemies. You know, it's like we do things that we know, even on not necessarily on a subconscious level, but on a conscious level, we know are not good for us, are not healthy, are not productive. Yet we do them anyway, almost with an addictive tendency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether that just be like talking yourself down or not getting up for in the morning, or there's a plethora of things. I mean,
vaping too much.
Vaping, drinking beer, porn, whatever it is. There's these things that we know, and it's almost like a cognitive dissonance where we're like, we know that it's wrong, but we continue to do it. And so we get in our, but it's almost, we're like addicted to emotional suffering, whether that be from other people or from ourselves. You know, like we tear ourselves down because we feel like it's like that imposter syndrome. Like, I don't feel like I deserve, like, I know how much of a piece of shit I am. I don't deserve to be where I'm at. Or it's other people like, hey, you're a piece of shit. You don't deserve to be where you're at, that kind of thing. And so there's something to that. You know, I've known many people, even myself, that are the darkest times I've been in my life are because of me. Like, I did something that I shouldn't have done, or I get stuck in this pattern of self-destruction, and I'm the only one who can get myself out of it. But we blame these things on other outside factors, like, oh, you know, my dad didn't love me, or, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me, or, oh, I'm just, addicted to crack. And so I fucking, want to kill myself. So there's all these things that we do. And that touches on your point. Like, there's something deeper inside of us that can either make or break us. You know what I mean? Like, there's something deeper than ourselves, whether that's subconscious, I don't know. But I think if you can tap into that on any level, if you can at least understand how it's operating in the conscious level, then you can not necessarily control it, but you can work with it. You know, I think that's all you can ask for, is just the ability to see when you're doing those kinds of things, or understand how something on the external affects the internal. You know what I mean? Instead of just, reacting, seeing, okay, how is that, how am I, take a step back from things? It's all about perspective, right? We are our own creators of our own universe, and that all comes from perspective. You know what I mean? Like, we're all watching a different movie on the same screen. So how can we make this movie more fun, or have a better ending? Yeah,
it's got to do with the microcosm and macrocosm, where, as above, so below. And one of the things that you touched on, right? It took me a mushroom trip to realize that, where it was like, change your ways or else you're leading yourself to a path of self-destruction. And that's what the mushrooms told me. And it changed my life, to be honest with you. And one of the things that you touched on, where you asked, like, oh, why do the elites do all this stuff? Well, have you seen the movie Free Guy?
Yeah, I just watched it a few weeks ago, dude. I loved it.
Right. So the whole aspect of being able to break out of your own reality, it's not the same thing when you know you're in a game versus when you don't know that you're in a game. So with these elites, the whole, oh, why do they need so much money? They're in a virtual casino right now. They can literally do whatever they want at any point in time. And money to them is just like what? Like the game Monopoly. They just keep going in circles, going the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own, the serpent eating its own tail. the endless cycle of reincarnation, if you will, where they're just playing Monopoly in real life with us. We're the pawns in this game of chess to them. And what happens when a pawn reaches the other side of the board? He can be upgraded to a queen or whatever the fuck he wants to be. And I think that's got to do with life. I think that we're all pawns in this game. And eventually, once you reach that end of that coincidentally, that checkered board, which is the duality, you are able to upgrade yourself to the queen and able to win the game. And I was listening to one of your last episodes, the SWAPCAST you did, and how you said it doesn't take all of us, right? It doesn't have to be all of us. If just enough of us come and wake the fuck up and say, hey, enough is enough. Because I got an American flag behind me, and in 1776, it was all about fuck you. We're going to do our own thing. Because if they would have bent the knee, we wouldn't be here right now, dude. And I mean, you can say whatever the fuck you want to say about the United States, but I'm a patriot, and I think it's one of the best countries in the entire fucking world. And I think it's we have it way better than a lot of other people, but people don't understand this. They haven't suffered enough to know what an actual communistic regime does to people. Look up North Korea, search, look and do research there to see how those people live. 75% of the population is starving, right? They keep them that way so they don't have enough energy to overthrow the government. You know what I mean? So, again, it comes back to this metaphysical aspect of they know that we're in a game. They know it's a game to them. We see the government do some shady ass shit. And the listeners listening to this, I suggest listening to or watching the documentary. It's called The Forever Prisoner, and it's on HBO Max. And I came across that in a weird way, but it's pretty much, there's this guy, and he's pretty much the forever prisoner. He does, they never told him why he's there. There are no charges against him, but he's in Guantanamo Bay, and he's going to continue to be there for the rest of his fucking life. Now, watch that documentary. You're going to see what he did to earn his place there, but there's all this evidence that the government did a lot of horrible shit to him, and they just got away with it. So that's the stuff that we see. That's the stuff that we know about. You know what I mean? But it's like Donald Rumsfeld. What happened to the $4 or $3 trillion? And then the next day was 9/11, and everybody forgot about that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, there's a lot going on, man. There's a lot. And I'll check out that documentary for sure. I agree, dude. It doesn't take a lot of us. It just takes a few of us to say, like talking about 1776, there's only like 10% of the population that was actually for revolution. And look what it did. So I try to be hopeful. I try to stay optimistic. There's a lot of shit going on. As you said, we're the greatest country on earth, but that also means we're being attacked the most, whether it's from inside or outside. We're constantly being attacked, and it's on a spiritual level. So
I'm gonna read I hate to do this, but one of my favorite Bible verses.
Let's do it, dude. I love it.
Let me look this up. And I know I speak a lot of heretical things, but it always goes back. There's a reason all these ancient legends and ancient scriptures, there's a mustard seed of truth to all of them. And I think the Bible, even if you don't follow it, I don't believe it should be followed to the T, because that's how we get the Dark Ages. But I feel that it's an instrument for people to become a better person. And every now and again, I quote it. Let me look this up here.
Are you typing? Holy shit, that's fast.
Yeah, I'm typing right now. All right, so it is. All right, here we go. So Ephesians 6:12, and I've said this shit on my show so many times. Let's go to the King James version. King James being another fucking creep in history. So, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. I don't like that iteration of it. Let me see here. Oh, I guess, yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm having a Mandela effect right now, but I remember it being different. Oh, fuck, dude.
What's going on?
Yeah. So anyways, it talks about the archons, what we were talking about, being this isn't a flesh and blood type of thing. It goes way above and beyond that. And I did this episode a while back, like I want to say like 2 years ago, where I said it's the war for our minds. And if you notice everything nowadays, it's like data is a commodity. It's a hot commodity. How many times have they fined Facebook billions of dollars for selling our information to God knows who, if it's even humans, right? Because we put all this trust in these algorithms. These are the new gods, right? These quantum computers and all this shit. At Amazon, dude, people get fired based on what the algorithm says. It says, hey, this guy's 99.2% effective and this other guy's 99.8. Well, we're going to let the 99.2 guy go. Oh, there's 300 other people with that same percentage. So they're all shit canned. And we literally let these algorithms rule our fucking world nowadays.
It goes back to the technology destroying ourselves, dude. That's all it is. That's what it goes back to. And these tech overlords, they want us dead, man. They want us dead. So, well, hey, man, I don't want to keep you too long. And this has been fun. We got to do this again, dude. We got to get maybe legit bad in here, or Primetime 99 Alex Stein, like someone just to like will go off the rails. And because we got a little serious tonight. I thought it'd be, but I like that, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's a little, but dude, I mean, I feel like you and I could get pretty crazy, you know what I mean?
I told you it was gonna get crazy, bro. And when I put this hat on, I told you it was gonna be all over the place. We got funny, we got serious, we got spiritual, we got conspiratorial. We went everywhere, dude. And this is what I love about podcasting, because you can just be everywhere all at the same time, and it's still a fucking. But I had a blast, dude. I think this was a great show, and I think people are gonna enjoy it.
I think so too, dude. And I got to get one of those hats, dude. Send me the link.
I'll send you the link.
And yeah, dude, it's it's all about, like, you and I would never meet in real life. You know what I mean? Like, we would never have this conversation. And that's what I love about podcasting, is just the ability. I can't talk to my fiance or my friends about this kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Tell me about it.
But we can do this here, and people listen. That's what's great, is we can get this out to people. So, well, hey, man, I just want to say thank you so much. Where can people find you? The one-on-one,
it's a SWAPCAST, right? So you got to plug your shit. I'm going to plug my shit. So at the One-on-One podcast on all social media platforms. Instagram is my main one. You can, my website, www.theoneononepodcast.com. You can find all my information, my contact in there. And yeah, I post clips on TikTok. I post videos on YouTube. I post clips on Instagram as well. And I talk about all types of shit, like how we talked about today. I talk about religion, the occult.
Dude, we didn't even get to crypto. We didn't even get into crypto.
We didn't get into crypto, bro. But hey, this is again, we can always do another show, bro. We can always do another fucking episode.
I would think we should, dude. So, well, and for your listeners, I'm Kyle from the Big Dumb Podcast. I had a co-host recently. He's actually about to have a baby, like any day now.
Nice.
So he's taking a step back, but it's just me for now. So Kyle, the Big Dumb Podcast, check us out everywhere. And I'll send you the links and stuff and you do the same for me. We'll put it all out. So, well, hey man, don't leave yet. I'm going to go take a piss, and we'll wrap it up. So I just wanted to say, everybody, thank you so much.
Hail Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.